You found my old, this is something from one of my old, when I was a high school student. Like, I have notes all in the margins and like, just to remind me of things. I have long legal pad papers of things that I came up with, just to remind me of what I was thinking when I read that particular piece. So you're gonna have another writing assignment tomorrow, but this one's gonna be a little bit voluminous, so I'm gonna prepare you. So we got a lot to do today and a lot to cover and to get to that point. So I'll have an alarm going off on my phone. The alarm will make a loud sound, all right? It doesn't mean I'll be constantly looking at the clock. I don't want you to think I'm trying to get out of here. I'm just trying to make sure I get everything in. Actually, I would say we could do this class in 1 week and never sleep. That's how I would like to do this class. That's the most exciting way to do it. So I'm never looking to get out of here, I promise you. Clarifications on the Trinity Suite. Well, we kind of touched on them yesterday, but I wrote them out today. Wrote them out for you. This is the second time you're going to read this. A few of you thought Blake was the speaker of the poem. Blake is the poet and not the speaker. I know this can be confusing, but Blake is giving voice to the narrator. William Blake was not a Trinity speaker. He was apprenticed as an engraver, which was common in those times. Apprenticeship is very similar to vocational training at present times, and we'll be coming back. I'm not going to read through all the clarifications, all right? But I want to ask you, and I'm going to go on to prove it at the end. Can you use my clarifications in my notes as something to cite as a secondary source in a research paper? You said it?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm getting it from a book about this thick, all right, that I had to read when I was a student, right, when I was an English major. So I'm getting the notes for you and putting it together for you. So any insights I offer are my insights, but if you want to use my insights to validate your argument or destroy my argument, knock yourselves out. That is a citation. Right? It saves you. I'm not saying we don't want you to go to the library. We do want you to go to the library. We want you to look things up. And if we had more time, we would be. I'm still going to add stuff in. So you can use my notes. And all you're going to say is Parker, my last name, and the date. And then on the works cited page, you would say Parker, Vincent, professor, lecture, such and such a date, agenda, blackboard, play where to find it. All right? So I'm going to show you how to do it. Other professors might not be as open-minded as I am about that. It doesn't matter. All I care about is you learning how to cite in the body of a paper and do a works cited page. That's all I care about. So it's MLA citation. So that's all I'm really interested in. All right, so you can read through these notes, right? And decide if, say you wanted to, clearly this would be something specifically if you were going to write about one of Blake's poems. You would read through these notes and find information that you can incorporate into your argument in tomorrow's discussion board assignment. If you're writing about Blake, there's notes for elements for everybody. Clearly here, I say here, William Blake is clearly a favorite of mine. I feel Blake speaks to those of us who are not gifted a formal education and have to find their own way, I should sort of our own way. When I read the lines, some were born to sweet delight, some were born to endless light, I knew I found a friend in poetry. His poems are accessible and profound, his artwork transcended of time. I think something that he also said. Side note, thank you for the students who commented on his art. I find Blake to be very spiritual in his artwork and poetry, but not at all religious. What do I mean by that? Very spiritual, but not religious. Is there a distinction between spirituality and religion? Go ahead, Tina.
I would say yeah, because you can believe in God, but you don't have to actually be obligated to a specific religion, faith rather. Like you don't have to be a Protestant, Christian, but you do believe in a higher being. Excellent.
So you know what you're going to say? Similar? Religion is usually a church or a temple or a mosque. It's a building, right? That has it's a culture. Religion is a culture, right? You have I was raised very Catholic. right? It becomes part of my culture. My belief in God, right? I'm not getting religious on you guys. I'm just kind of building on what Lenise is saying. My innate spirituality, my faith, doesn't come from my religion. It comes from inside of me. I've always believed. I've been very lucky in life. People say, why do you believe? You're educated, highly educated. How can you believe in God? I said, I don't know. It seems just felt the feeling. Now, what God represents to you could be a million different things, right? God could be nature. God could be anything, depending on who you are. But it's a distinction between God and my faith. Faith and religion. Right? I still go to church, I'll still go to mass, I'll still say prayers, but that's my religion, right? It has nothing to do with my communication with a God. So I'm telling you this not just because you're going to talk about me. I'm telling you this because that was what Blake was. Blake was innately, instinctively spiritual. So you couldn't shake his faith in God, but what did you younger people use? He threw a lot of shade at the church, right? Did I use that right? He threw shade at the church, right? He throws shade at the church like, all right, you're a good place, trying to do the right thing, but you're really not. You should be looking out for the people a little bit more, which is good. He does the same thing with government. I don't think Blake wanted to become an American citizen. I think Blake was happy being a British subject, but he wanted to throw shade at them and let them know. I'm going to use a lot now. He wanted to throw shade at them and let them know, you know what, you could be doing more for your people. Same thing we do here, right? I mean, especially with government. We kind of like, you could be doing more for us. You could be trying a little harder. I don't mean I want to move to Uzbekistan. I'm picking on Uzbekistan, but I want them to do better for all of us. All right, so that was Blake. That gives you a sense of Blake. That's one of my favorite lines from Blake, and I'm going to reference it later on. Some will go into Sweet Delight, some will go into Endless Night. Once I heard that line, I was like, wow, you're right. Depends on where you come from in life, what you've experienced, and then you could expose. I think Lenise pointed out yesterday. When I got exposed to very wealthy people, which has only been like in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I was like, oh my God, you had it all. You went to these certain schools, you did this, you had it all. You got all the cards. You were born to Sweet Delight, right? I can't say I was born to Endless Night, but some people are. Blake was trying to point that out, right? Which just again, shining a light on us. I pointed this out to you yesterday. In his poem, Chimney Sweeper, Blake is rebelling against the injustice of state and church in England. He sees the church as they work in concert to exploit the children. I give you this whole little background, which I went through yesterday, but now it's in your notes. If you needed to refer to something that I said, it'll be in your notes if you wanted to make an argument. Again, your next assignment will be relatively manageable. It won't be that lengthy. It will be. But you will be able to incorporate your next assignment into a longer assignment when you write your research paper. So putting your effort into your next assignment will make your research paper that much easier. All right, again, you could could be a later work, but nevertheless, we'll see how it works out. I put that stuff about him beating up the Royal Dragoons guy. I actually cited accurately. One might suggest that Blake's reaction to the soldier from the Royal Dragoons, as mentioned in Monday's notes under the brief biography of William Blake, who Blake forcibly removed from his property in 1803. I got that from Abrams. That is the book that I was talking about, that Abrams was an editor in it. So I cited it, just to show you how to cite when I'm paraphrasing something. Does that make sense? We'll go through it. If you need a little practice with it, it's okay. But that is the key to avoiding the buzzword in all of academia, which is plagiarism. Just say what you got, right? And also extend your argument exponentially, because now you're using backup sources. You can build a 5-page paper off of one good statement. One good statement, you could write a 5-page paper. Easily. Well, not easily, I would show it too, it's not that easy, but it's easier. I make this speculation, one might question, so I put that in italics for a reason, are you seeing the writing trick so as not to trap yourself into professing unproven facts? One might question, why didn't the state find a more permanent way to get rid of Blake? That's my speculation, right? There's no fact based on that. So I say one might suggest, or one might question. So you're not stating positively, I know this for a fact, you're saying maybe. But it still makes your argument strong. It is my contention that England did not want to make martyrs of anyone. The British Crown was anxious after losing the colonies and an open rebellion that occurred in France, which was followed by the Reign of Terror. Although the pen is mightier than the sword, it is easier to survive an unkind word written about you than it is to survive an open wound from a pointed blade. Therefore, restrictions in literature were lifted, and the Romantic movement in literature was born. Blake's poetry within the Romantic movement would be characterized as social criticism. The poets perceiving Blake are more in rebellion against conventions, both in society and literature and form, than they are against church and state. That is my speculation to lead us into this. That is an explanation to my statement. So in other words, I must have made a statement, I quoted something, and this is my explanation. This is the trick on how to write a lengthy paper. Because you're all kind of brilliant, so I'm going to be okay. Did you read The Gray Monk?
Yes.
What did you think? Now that you know Blake, what did you think? You know, say that you want, I'm not Blake. Even if I don't think Blake would carry you. Go ahead.
Is that really different?
How so?
I don't know, in comparison to like the first couple ones that we read, it was definitely like a major shift. Like before, even is more like Western sort of findings, they felt like more known comics, but it had like this sort of at the same time sort of like it wasn't as overt as this one. It's like when I read it, I was like, oh. Like I can still tell that he wrote it, but he was definitely in a different state of mind while writing this. Especially at the end. I just found it really interesting, to be honest.
Excellent start. Anybody want to build on that? It has some of the greatest lines to me in poetry history, by the way, at some points. But anybody want to build? Anybody else read it? I can tell you get a good reading. Like I feel like, didn't you when we read we read 4 poems by Blake? Chimney Sweeper, London, Tiger, Lamb. That's pretty good. That you banged out 4 poems. This is your 5th Blake poem, which is pretty good. Blake has got a dark quality to him, right? But there's an undertone of what even in his dark quality? It's excellent. We're on the same wavelength. It's an undercurrent of hope. Like if I let you know, you're gonna change, right? All I gotta do is point it out to you. If I show you in Songs of Innocence that we're all born beautiful, and by the time I get to Songs of Experience and show what society could turn us into, by the time I bridge that gap, you're gonna be like, I can turn it around. I can help. I can do better for my children. I can do better for the sufferings of others, especially with Chimney Sweeper. Maybe the church will get wise and stop abusing these children. As Lenise points out, and I concur, and it's like a form of slavery, right? We're down to we got these slaves because no one will look out for them. They're children, they're naive, they're innocent. We can exploit them, and no one will care. Blake cares. In London, he tries to point out the Industrial Revolution, as Lucas said yesterday, people start coming into the cities, right? The cities are growing, but there's still real problems. And I think Fahim mentioned it a little bit yesterday, or we took back and forth on a little bit yesterday. It's not just the prostitutes that are the sinners. It's the people that go to the prostitutes that are sinners. So if we eliminated the demand, we would obviously extinguish the supply, right? This goes into thinking of drugs and everything else. Once you eliminate the demand for it, then there's no more money in supplying it. But there's money and there's economics involved and people can make money off of it. They will. You know, you might have a conscience. I know I couldn't do it, but a lot of people can. And so it's kind of like, that's the glory of Blake shining a light. But something happens in this poem that kind of changes, not my opinion of Blake, but Blake's opinion of what to do. He does an amazing trick, which is a trick that's used endlessly in literature. Like every first line is supposed to be a hook, right? When you're writing, you're going to hook us, right? What does he do to hook us right away?
He's talking about like the poor people, how destitute they are, and that like the government is in the church, they're doing nothing about it. So kind of like the people are starting like to rise up against it.
Okay, cool. That's good. I mean, you got an exclamation point there, right? Right? I mean, whenever you want to build on it? Excellent. I die, the mother said. We all have a mom, right? We all come from somewhere. It's one of those things that when you read it, it evokes what? Pain. Pain and emotion. Why?
Especially from a mother, when it comes when the exclamation mark is there, it shows the emotion and the tone of the way the mother was screaming. As you know, we all have mothers, and you imagine if she's yelling like that, something bad probably happened. You know, so the feeling was there, like the grittiness was there, like the pain of the mother was resonating through the writing, and I felt that too. Regardless of the feel, Blake still stayed true to the social injustice. He also, like, with his power, I feel like with his the artistic power, he expresses the social injustice in this poem, and I loved it. But it was kind of hard to read it at the beginning because I felt little off.
Well, there's a shift in who's speaking at the time. You got the quotation marks that makes it very difficult.
It does, and I had a hard time breaking this poem down. But I got the gist and I got the idea, which is still the same. His cause, for social, our social responsibility falls under ourselves, and we need to better our society. And he kept on. I feel like he kept adamant about that.
Yes.
He still stayed in his idea, so which I liked about this. But it was a hard essay hard poem to.
But you get it though, right?
Yeah.
It's funny, like once you get don't you feel a little smarter now? Like when you're reading poetry, you should feel a little stronger and say, wait a minute, I think I got the idea. And even if you're a little off, you're still on.
Right.
You know, I had to read this poem probably a dozen times before I really got it when I was a student. I didn't get it the first time, but I did get one thing right away. I die, the mother said. And as Vaheen points out, if my mom, God rest her soul, complained, she got my attention.
Oh yeah.
If my father complained, I'd be like, I don't care what you think. I didn't say it to him because I'd be unconscious. But I was like, whatever, yeah, I'll do it. But if my mom said it,
That's it.
my mom, I'd give you a simple example, I'll never forget it. I was older, I was like 16, I'm home, my mom's cooking, right, she's making sauce, right? And she goes, Vincent, can you run to the store and pick up a container of milk for me? Yeah, I'll go in a little bit, Mom. I need the container of milk, Vincent. Yeah, I'll go in a little bit. Okay. Well, one day I'll be gone, and and I was like this. I'm going now. The thought of her being gone was overwhelming. I was like, oh my God. Like, you got me. The power of that woman. The power of the woman that's a mom. Unbelievable. I die, the mother said. He got us. Why is the mother suffering? What has happened that the mother is suffering? My children, and then as Elise points out, my children died for lack of bread. They're starving, right? What more has the merciless tyrant said Now, as Fahim points out, the quotation ends there. So now we have to start thinking, who's talking now? Right? The monk sat down on the stony bed. So the mother talks, then the narrator talks. You see how it goes? That's what makes it tricky. Now the narrator continues. The blood ran from the gray monk's side, his hands and feet were wounded wide, his body bent, his arms and knees, like to the roots of ancient trees. He gives a vivid description of the monk's suffering, right? So I'm going to ask just on the top one, does anybody catch this symbolic reference of the monk? So the monk comes into the house. We don't know his relationship, but it's not his mother. Otherwise, it said his mother said, right? The monk's mother said, right? He comes into the house. The mother says, I die, the mother said, right? My children die from lack of bread, right? The monk flops down. He's exhausted. Why is he exhausted? He's cut to pieces. The blood ran from the gray monk's side. His hands and feet were wounded wide. His body bends, his arms and knees like to the roots of ancient trees. Where's the symbolism or the metaphoric reference there? Did you catch it? Guys.
Comparing is, I don't know if just brutalized body to like tree roots.
Say what?
Comparing this brutalized body to tree roots.
Yeah, that's cool. Like the tree roots has a. You have to also reflect. Remember what I told you when it was translated? The Bible was translated to English. Everybody read it, right? I mean, now it's a big thing. It was a teaching tool, right? You teach from the Bible, right? It was also in the church.
Jesus?
Yeah, he's Christ. He's not Jesus really, but they punished him like, you're a monk, you're so devoted to Jesus. We're gonna hurt you like Jesus was hurt. Let's see how tough you are, right? So they cut into his hands, banged through something to his hands, banged through something to his feet, and stabbed him in the side, right? But he's still alive, but he's not alive, maybe not for long, right? He's pretty beaten down, right? So Blake likens the monk's martyrdom for the children starving to the, let's say it for our class purposes, the mythological idea of the New Testament of the Bible. But then he likes the roots of ancient trees. He kind of dates back to Adam and Eve. Right? He's now going back to the beginning of the Bible, the beginning of the Eden, right? He links it to that. So the narrator is linking the great monk, to the story of martyrdom and the suffering of Christ. Okay? I mean, you don't have to catch it right away.
I didn't catch it like that because it was kind of hard to break down, but I broke it down a little bit.
Okay, what'd you say?
I broke it down where that with the when it said what has the merciless client said, I put that the mother wanted to know what is the heartless government, like what is the church doing to help these poor families who can't simply provide simple stuff to survive like food. And then I put that when the monk sat down on a stony bed, I looked at the stony bed as like a rock that's being stable to hold things together in place, and the church is like an influencer, and they make things like stable because people go to like the church or to their spirituality and pray and look for answers. So that's why I look at it that way, and then and they persuade people. So because they're not holding things to a certain standard, that these people are getting really angry and they want to like attack the church or the chapter. That's what I looked at.
It's not, you're kind of halfway there though. Don't discourage yourself. That was great, because look at how you expanded and explained something from the piece that, although I think if we talk about it a little more, maybe you'll focus a little bit more, but he's definitely not mad at the church in this one. He's mad at the state. Right? The monk is in relationship to what you're saying. the monk is a representative of the church. So he's not against the church in this particular piece. He's against the state. And the great monk is a representative of not just of Jesus, but all of Blake's martyr characters. The state makes the monk into Jesus by the way they wound him. The monk doesn't make himself into it. Does that make sense? It's important to recognize the distinction. His eye was dry, no tear could flow. A hollow groan first spoke his woe. I love that he rhymes, right? It keeps the music in it, right? He trembled and shuddered upon the bed. At length, with a feeble cry, he said, as Fahim was pointing out before, there's a third shift now. We have the mother speaking, we have the narrator speaking, now we have the monk speaking. Right? So that's the quotation marks. If you miss them, if you read through them, like you're driving through Texas at 90 miles an hour, right? You're going to miss a lot of signs. I know because I drove through Texas at 90 miles an hour because I couldn't wait to get out of it. But you're going that fast, you're going to miss it. So you got to sometimes slow down. You can read it through like an auctioneer the first time, but afterwards you got to slow down a little bit. And that's when you start getting some of the message. And we find out who the monk is here. When God commanded this hand to write in the studious hours of deep midnight, he told me the writing I wrote should prove the bane of all that on earth I loved. Right? So we know that the monk is not only just a monk, he's a what?
He's an artist.
He's an artist.
He's a poet.
Yeah, he's a poet. Excellent. He's writing. So the monk was writing. Actually, the reason that the Bible was kept alive was because when they were writing out the Bible, there were Irish monks that kept rewriting it. So after the Dark Ages, the Bible was reborn in the middle of it. You don't have to know all that, but I just wanted to get out of there. Thy father drew his sword in the north. With his 1,000 strong he marched forth. Thy brother has armed himself in steel to avenge the wrong thy children feel. All right, so the mother's father, that sounds tricky, right? The mother in the poem's father started a war against the tyrant. The tyrant was being cruel to what his part of the southern tyrant, say, well, just to make it simple, was being cruel. So the mother that's crying for children's bread, the father went to battle, right? With his 1,000 strong he marched forth. Thy brother has armed himself in steel to avenge the wrongs thy children feel. Right? So the mother's cries are being heard by the father and the brother. Right? It's difficult to figure out who the monk is, but it appears at this point the monk is her brother. Right? Because then he say, thy father, thy, right? Like thy father could be both of their fathers, both of their brothers, right? Could be at this point, because why else is he there? Right? So they decided to, right, two family members answered the cry by going to war. One family member answered the cry by going to the tyrant to plead the case. Right? The power of the word versus the power of the sword. Then Blake, I think this is what Zaire was kind of referencing. But vain the sword and vain the bow, they never can work war's overthrow. The hermit's prayer and the widow's tear alone can free the world from fear. So he's kind of like looking at the situation that the brother and father did. It's like, you're just going to make another war. And, what's going to happen? There's going to be orphans. Right? There's going to be widows. Doesn't say orphans specifically, but I'm just referencing his earlier work. And it's like the only thing that can happen is if we start to show our compassion, right? Passive resistance, if you will, right? Which has worked a lot of times in history. Passive resistance does have a history of working, where people just say, I'm not going to fight, but I'm going to let you torture me. God forbid, it's horrible. But if I don't fight back, then you don't have any reason to destroy me. It's interesting. That's the way the great monk sees it anyway. way. And then he has this poem within a poem, I feel like. Which is pretty challenging.
I feel like that one was like he's trying. I really don't know what he was trying to like achieve because there was like I got two meanings. One was like showing the pain and agony and so the society, you know, facing all of this and the cruelty that the monk felt, and the mother is feeling too. But at the end, I felt like he's also telling like there's potential, like there's hope. So if
That's excellent.
you know, like that if we could do something better, then the society would be better. I felt like that, but I couldn't really pinpoint, like, but I felt it. When I was reading, I felt that, like,
It is moving,
yeah,
right?
it is moving. At the end, like he says that for the tier of intelligent things, the shade of sword and an angel king, the bitter groan of mighty woe is to the arrow of mighty bow. So is he trying to say like fight back?
Let's work on it. You're on the right path because it's one of the highlights. I used to have it in my refrigerator for like 25 years. I just thought it was such a great little line, and the meaning was deep. For a tear is an intellectual thing, and a sigh is the sword of an angel king, and the bitter groan of a martyr's woe is an arrow from the Almighty's bow. What does it mean when he says, well, line by line, which will make it, what does it mean a tear is an intellectual thing? What does it mean? What is he saying by that? A tear is an intellectual thing. A lot of times tears are confused with weakness, correct? Somebody cries out, it's weak, it's a weakness, right? But he's saying, no, it's not a weakness. A tear is an intellectual thing, which means what? Guys,
Well, building up on this point that you made, and seeing how this poem is really against people going towards a fight against their oppressors, also going to passive resistance by you showing that the crying or showing a tear, you're both showing that the pain that the situation is causing you, but also having the full strength to show it in a way that's not destructive. Where it's like now you can just look at me and you already know how I feel without me acting out against you and possibly causing like a violent reaction.
excellent
It's
stuff.
like it's like a motivational thing. Like, let's say sometimes there's a fear of crying of joy. Like if you like, let's say like you're really passionate about something and you got really emotional. He's trying to say that.
It's good. You got in the emotion aspect of it, which is the important part. Again, you understand it because you're the intellectual, if you will. If you have to be kind of smart to feel sorry for people. You have to look into their situation. It's an intelligence thing, right? It's not like you have to think, because most of the time when your reactions are reflexive, right? Like something happens to somebody else, I don't want to think about it, or I don't care. But if you pause and think, and you put your mind to it, that's freaking sad, right? I mean, they'll catch you in the morning sometimes if you're watching television. They'll put on those commercials where there's like children suffering, and for the price of a cup of coffee, I can buy them a house, right? And you see these commercials, and you're like, a lot of times you switch the station, right? I mean, sometimes you're not in the mood, or a little tired, and I'm not ready for this, right? Because if you are ready for it, it's going to touch on you because you're intelligent enough to know this is horrible, right? So you shed a tear for it. Right? You don't necessarily have to react to it, but any kind of story, somebody's telling you a bad time in their lives, they're sharing with you a horrible thing that happened to them, right? If you listen and you put yourself in their place as much as you can, you'll shed a tear for them.
So sympathy, basically.
Yeah, you have a sense of sympathy, in some cases empathy. If you suffered similar tragedies, you're like, oh wow, that's bad.
Right.
So you have to think. So Blake is saying you have to think to be smart enough to shed a tear.
I was just going to say, empathy is a sign of emotional intelligence.
Say it again.
I was going to say, empathy is a sign of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Excellent. And Asai is the sword of an angel king. this is where it gets a little bit, this is where I think, Zaire was saying in the beginning, and I kind of asked a question later on. There's something about this that reeks of Blake losing hope. He's starting to realize that, okay, I really can't get to you. Like it's never gonna, I can't get you to feel it. Because Asai is a sort of an angel. Asai is this, right? Which ultimately means what?
Complacency or like.
Say it a bit clearer.
Complacency, sort of just meh, where you don't have a very visceral reaction to it. You're just sort of like a bystander.
Excellent. Complacency. You've lost the ability to act. You're like, when you sigh, you're like, all right. I say it to my wife all the time, and she laughs. I'm like, and she tells me enough stuff, and I'm like, I realize that there's nothing I can do about it. About her job, she'll be complaining about her job, and after the third or fourth hour, I go like this. There's nothing I can do. You're not gonna leave. I told you to leave. So it's like, I give up. I'll let you complain, but I don't know what I can do. In this poem's case, it's like, I'm smart enough to know this is wrong, but there ain't a damn thing I can do about it. So I'm just gonna throw a sigh that way, right? But then he says, and the bitter groan of tomorrow's woe is an arrow from the Almighty's bow. Not everybody, as Luca uses a perfect word for it, not everybody becomes complacent. Some people go on. They go deep, they dig deeper, and they put up a real fight. And what is that going to add up to for them?
You die.
You die. You're going to die. You've gone past it now. You've gone past the rest of us. Throughout history, we can name the people in history that know they're going to die for their actions. Because there's so few of them. They go, all right, I'm going all in. And they'll have followers, right? Until somebody decapitates them, crucifies them, shoots them, and then their followers start to scatter and go, oh, this could happen to me. I'm not this kind of person. I can follow that kind of person, but that person isn't me. I can be behind them, but the prophet or the martyr knows this isn't going to end bad for me. I'm going up against the power of the state. It was a famous thing. I'm using this as an example, as something quite heroic that was part of history. In Tiananmen Square in China, again, I'm not getting political, I just thought this was an interesting story. In Tiananmen Square in China, students had a revolution in the 1990s, right, to try to create democracy. And on the news, they show a guy standing in front of a tank, right? And the tank tries to go around him, and he walks over and stands in front of the tank, right? And everybody's like, oh my God, he's a martyr, right? Because I was going, oh my God, and I'm going, when that news shuts off, this guy's dead. They're not going to show it because they don't want to make a martyr out of him, but maybe he did live, but I was thinking at the time, you've gone all in. So they're going to have to react to you. Meaning the state, not picking on the Chinese government, I don't care about that, but meaning the state is going to have to react to you now. I use the story, but was Blake would be using the story of Christ as a reference point for this. Didn't really do anything wrong, right? Eventually, everybody, actually the temple and the state decided you're in trouble, right? Drag them out. We'll make a point, right? We'll nail him to a cross and let him die on the crucifixion. You think people are going to say, I want to be in charge now? Scare people, right? But he knows that's going to end this way, but he's going to do it, despite. And that's what the great monk went all in. That's why he's beat up. So this little poem within a poem kind of reflects on Blake's realization that the only way to do this is to sacrifice yourself. Literally. And Then he gets this really cynical final to it. Right? Because we assume it's the brother, and we know it's the brother and father of the mother who cried, but now we know it might be the brother and father of the poet, or the monk, excuse me. The hand of vengeance found the bed to which the purple tyrant fled. The iron hand crushed the tyrant's head and became a tyrant instead. So the father got caught up with the father caught up to the tyrant in charge that tortured Blake. That tortured the monk. We assume that the monk has been freed, right? So if he's been freed, how did he get free? Well, I'm gonna let you know. Your father caught up with the other tyrant. Your brother and father caught up with the other tyrant. They got him. They killed him. Purple means royalty. The color purple, in terms of the color purple, consciously used it means royalty. It was a hard color to find. It's made with the ink of octopus, so it was a difficult color. So if you did dye colors, it was rare to get. So that's how they distinguished themselves from you. Their clothes were purple. The iron hand crushed the tyrant's head. So your father and brother got to him, killed him, and then what happened?
Is that one have the connection with who was fighting too long against the dragon, not the dragon himself?
Oh, that's I mean, he might see that. Excellent, nice connection to the work that he did. Went against the member of the Royal Dragoon, right? Excellent, nice connection. You became a tyrant too. It's not like you took over and were a good guy. You took over, you used all of our forces, and you became another version of a bad guy. Just a different version. So at this point in the poem, we start to recognize Blake's what? Like, I think I'm going to go back to Zaire, because he points out something I like about hope in the poem. But what happens now? What is reflected in that last stanza?
Oh, it's just history repeating itself. It's just history repeating itself.
Excellent. We'll use it's just going to keep repeating. Hope in a lot of the poems, we're reading Blake's hope throughout. I'm reading hope. That's why I love them, right? The inside is hope. Maybe we all see this, right? But at this point, he becomes what?
Revolutionary?
That's not bad. A different kind of revolution. His revolution failed, if you will.
Right, but he tried.
He tried, and he's probably not going to live, right? The great monk is bleeding from his hands, his feet, his side. He's probably going to bleed out, right? I mean, this is not modern medicine. Like, it's not like you can necessarily stop these kind of wounds. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll survive, but he survives in a very different form than he was.
He's saying that because like power still exists and it's not going to end, because there's like an imbalance in the people that are in power and those that aren't. It sort of doesn't matter who's in power and who you're fighting alongside, because once they're in power, you're just subjugating other people.
Like you'd say, connecting, right? Connecting the dots. He's like, it doesn't matter who's in charge. Whoever's in charge is going to be bad, right? They're going to be the ones in power, and they're going to hurt people. Hope has led to cynicism. It's real cynicism, right? It's like, Cass. It's never going to change. Right? It's like the realist, the idealist. There was a card that I gave to somebody as a joke who was very idealistic. I'm still idealistic, so I'm half a moron, I guess. But the idealist meets reality, and it was a person ideal looking up at the sun and the skies and walking like this, not realizing they're about to walk off a cliff. So the idealist meets reality. And I don't know if Blake stays completely. Am I sort of completely? I'm sorry, Pete.
No, I didn't say that.
Did you say something?
Oh, I said cynical.
I don't know if he stays cynical. I don't think there's illustration that shows that Blake doesn't stay cynical. But he feels a little pain and defeat at this point. Like, tried so hard, and it's not really working out. Or maybe this is his way of really waking people up. or maybe like Lucas said, maybe we don't need these people in charge of us. Maybe we do all right without them. It's up to us to decide. Excellent work. This is a very difficult poem, and we have this shift in narrator. We have speaker's narrator. That's a good way to read it. Like Fahim was pointing out, it's challenging, but it's really challenging just because of who's the speaker. Sometimes you have to say that when you're reading poetry. Who's the speaker? Especially if there is quotation marks involved. All right, the first part of our class, I'm gonna keep checking the time. Okay, good. Okay, I think I'm okay. The first part of our class is, weeks of our class, is the Romantic period in literature, which we're discussing. Blake I attributed to be the grandfather of the Romantic period. I pointed out, I say grandfather because not everybody accepts him as a romantic. Now we're going to see what what makes you a romantic poet, right? And you can, and this is why I used to argue that Blake is a romantic then. According to the Norton Anthology of English Literature chapter on the Romantic period, I brought the chapter with me to see if I can plug something else in, but this is pretty good. The Romantic poets believed that poetry of the previous century was artificial. So prior to the quote-unquote Enlightenment period, Industrial Revolution, the American Revolution, literacy, they were like, this is all just nonsense. Like, and sometimes when you read these poems, I love them still, but it's like, it's all about the king and the princess. It's all about these love affairs going back and forth, but they're not about the common people and their struggles, right? So they start to say this poetry's all been artificial. It's made up. It's not, there's no, I think Fahim was kind of saying in his argument, there's no emotion there. It's intellect, right? Whereas the Romantics wanted to be a little bit more emotional. Williams Wordsworth, who we're going to read next, suggests that poetry should be a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. It is emphasized that the source of poetry is not the outer world, but the inner world of the individual poet. What does that mean? What are these? Spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. Give an example. Okay.
So, instead of sort of like sitting down and taking time to sift through your thoughts and editing over time and all of that, I'm not entirely sure it's a working process, but he would, if he felt extremely strongly about something or felt that something was beautiful or amazing or whatever, I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
That he would sort of write it in the moment, but in a calm manner.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I don't.
You're right. You're made it to the finish line.
I think he'd be overrun with passion and all that, and sort of maybe write it in an aggressive way.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you because I don't want you to go away because you've got like.
So those.
I wish I was your blocker because I would have pushed the line back and got you into the end zone. Excellent, Luca. Go ahead.
Building off of what he said, I guess the way that I would describe it is like having an explosion of like passion, but like trying to condense it. So it's like, you know when you have like that aha moment when you're doing anything? Like, you have like that aha moment, so you really just want to like just splurge everything out. It's like taking that, but condensing it to like its utmost limit. It's trying to like have each stanza mean what you want to like think, but have it to where it's like when you're reading something, it looks tame, but when you finish that line, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's kind of like something.
Excellent. This is great stuff. Nobody usually gets this, by the way, guys. Well done. Good.
Like, make sure the natural process, that's probably you not being divided by outside of it. So you're just at peace and it's authentically you.
Excellent. You need to feel something. They're suggesting that poetry should be about a feeling. And we don't feel things all the time, right? We feel things sensibly, right, all the time. But emotionally, we don't feel things all the time, right? you don't always have a reaction. I always think of, this is the way I equate it for college students. I remember the first time I fell in love with somebody and we broke up. I thought I was gonna die. I wasn't used to emotion, so I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, this is a horrible, horrible, painful feeling, right? They would say, Wordsworth would say, capture that feeling. That is where poetry is. Because that pain is a pain we all feel. So if you can capture that pain and write it down in a place of tranquility. So you write it if you feel it, but then you gotta go where, if you will, to really get it down. You gotta
Go to nature.
Excellent.
Sit under a tree.
Right? Go to nature. If you get, because most of us, when we feel pain, I mean, especially in modern times, you text a friend, right? You know, like you can text somebody, you can reach out. No. Go live the feeling. Go to a place where you can just think about the feeling, and there's your poem. You're going to write about what you felt. And it's going to have to take shape in time and all that other stuff, but don't shape it and make it artificial. Shape it and make it real. Don't start thinking it. Let it be your heart. Now, it's almost impossible to do, clearly, but they're saying that's the place to start, right? And that's the Romantic movement. It wasn't about, like, it wasn't about the commoners' feelings. It was about the state's opulence, right? We had to celebrate them. Now, we have our own. People die in childbirth back then, like a regular basis. That's a painful freaking experience for these people. It could enlighten the poet to where they can enlighten other readers. Right? So it's an important moment. That was great, guys. I thought that was going to take a lot longer, so we're in better shape. Therefore, it is the inner feeling of the poet that really matters. The external world is used as a means to express the poet's feelings about the world. Right? It's you that matters. Again, it's the celebration of me, not the state, not the church, not acknowledging them. It's what happened to me that matters. The thoughts and emotion and imagination of the poet, what makes for great poetry. The Romantics celebrated the use of the first person I in the poetry. You say I feel this, I saw this, I'm not separate from the poet. Like as he was pointing out, who there's so many speakers. Are you the speaker? Are you the poet and the narrator, are they the same person? And we kind of want them to be, right? In a lot of ways. It was the poet who was speaking to you directly. The Romantics emphasized nature in their work, which was brilliant, the Luca, because that's where you gotta go find. That's where you find things in tranquility, right? It is in nature where the poet can organize the aforementioned spontaneous, meaningful, powerful feelings and reflect on those feelings in tranquility. The Romantics celebrated radical individualism and appreciated that although we are all mortal, art itself is immortal. I'll get into that in a second. Poets survive through poems, and all artists survive through their artwork. So they really were radical individualists. In other words, like, and kind of I think this is where I give Blake credit to Gray Monk. It's like, forget it. You're never gonna fix this stuff. It's not about them anymore. It's about you. Go be an individual. Go celebrate the self. Go live your life. You're not under anybody's auspices anymore. You are your own person. So it's radical individualism. It's like, it's almost bordering on selfishness to some degree, although you get to choose your who you want to work with. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna, sorry, I didn't want to tell you that, but we're all gonna die. But what you create in your lifetime is the art you create will live forever. Perfect example, we're reading poems that were written at this point over 200 years ago, right? So the art has survived. We are mortal, we don't. So art is immortal. And we're gonna have a great little moment today with that concert. Wordsworth, we'll go into this. Wordsworth is, unlike Blake, Wordsworth goes to college. Wordsworth's not a poor kid, right? He's got money. He's not rich, but he's got some power. He can go to a university. I put it out, he can afford to be a little bit idle. Most of us, when we went to school, had to work, right? Now, if you can sit home and study, my brother and I were talking about it the other day, we've all worked since we were little kids. So it's like, the kids that didn't have to work and was studying that time has an advantage, right? A big advantage. Whether they use it or not is up to them. After graduating college, he and a friend took a walking tour over the French Alps and arrived in France during the storming of the Bastille, July 14th. So they arrived in France during the French Revolution. So he's a young guy that arrives during the Revolution, so he gets inspired by that revolution. That's not true. It's the 14th. It's 2 days from now. Is it storming of the Bastille? I missed the date in my head. Wordsworth is inspired by the revolutionary spirit. He's 19 years old. Not much surprise there. Wordsworth falls in love with a royalist, despite their opposing political positions. So he falls in love with somebody that's devoted to the crown. Right? So now this radical and revolutionary is in love with a girl that's, and it takes precedent. He kind of lets go of a lot of his radical beliefs. When he returns to England, the different political positions lead Wordsworth's love issues to break off the relationship. So she walks away from him. She's tired of hearing how radical he is as she's waiting to be beheaded. Which leads to Wordsworth having a breakdown. He has an emotional breakdown. Wordsworth mellows as the years pass and he becomes less of a revolutionary, which is an important point in his development. Like his poetry really never starts anywhere near Blake's. His poetry is very more nature eye, artwork lasting, things of that nature. Did you have a chance to read Intimations of Immortality? Pretty long, right?
It's pretty long, but I related to it.
How so? Tell me, Pete.
I'm facing those feelings now.
Okay.
I have a younger brother and I'm the middle child. I have an older brother. So during my younger brother's right now is 15 years old. So I viewed the world differently compared to now. My little brother doesn't have any responsibilities. He has his school done. He just go to park, play, come home, enjoy, and whatnot. But now I'm an adult, right? So I have responsibility. I gotta pay bills. I gotta pay insurance. I gotta do all of this. I gotta get my education done. I start to get a better job.
Right.
So I'm overwhelmed with other things rather than all the fun times I had during my lifetime. Like when I was younger, right? Like I went outside, rode a bike, played with my friends, flew a kite, all of that. But right now, I can't really do that, even though I want to. But in this poem, he talks about the joy and all the fun. But those joy and the fun also keeps me motivated. I want to be retired at some point in my life, so I could go back and enjoy the way I was. Maybe I'm not gonna be like childish, but I will have my own joy in my way.
Excellent.
So I really felt what he was saying, and it was a pretty nice poem.
If you have the patience for it, it's a great poem.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I was just home bored, so I just kept reading.
It's great.
So I read it a lot with it.
You were rewarded by the patience.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was moments when I was like, wait, what? And then I went back and came back again. So, but I really did relate with this poem.
You got it though. You got it even from your first reading. Like you got it. Like the overall sense of what it is.
Yeah.
Excellent. Did you have something? Maybe something. Beautiful. It's hard to build off. It's easy to build off of it.
Right.
But it's like the title of the poem, which Luca gave us an example of yesterday. Never missed the title. When he said when we were all talking about London and we're talking about the different things in London, Luke was like, "Oh, it's in London." I know you didn't say it. I'm paraphrasing, but it's like he's talking about what the city is like after the Industrial Revolution, what's coming off of it. So it's important to get the title down. The title is intense.
Limitation.
Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood. So intimations is intimate thoughts of, what's immortality? What's immortality?
Not getting
Say it.
immortal, never die, never disappear, existed forever.
You live forever. Intimations of immortality. When's the only time in life you really believe that you were immortal?
Continue.
When you're a child. When you're, you say when you're an idiot. That's great. But no, I mean, childhood, right? When you're a little kid, you live forever, right? I mean, some of us go well into our 20s thinking they can live forever, right? I mean, I had a motorcycle, I mean, like, you know, riding crazy, it's like, nothing could kill me. Oh yeah, something can, right? Intimations of immortality is from recollection of early child. So Wordsworth is saying, can you get back there? Is there a way of still believing you are immortal? Not in a self-destructive way, but in a way that I'm going to use you guys could be Dave. All of us. I love teaching. You know why I love teaching so much? Why I love being in a classroom so much? Because I forget all my other responsibilities and talk about the things I want to talk about. But otherwise, I got bills. I got to get to work. I got to check on the car. It's a whole bunch of things. When I'm doing this, I'm at peace. But once I step away from this, I have the mind forged manacles as Zaire points out the other day, start to wrap themselves around me. I go home and my wife starts telling me about how hard our job is and I have problems, right? But for these moments, I'm like a little bit of a child again because I'm doing something I enjoy, so I'm happy. So Wordsworth kind of suggests there may be a way of getting back there. Maybe. The child is the father of the man, and I could wish my days being bound each to each by natural piety. What does it mean? The child is the father of the man. Throws it big off right away.
I was thinking like the father was a child once, so the child will be a father again. Something like
It's hard.
yeah, like it's like like I don't know what to say. But I don't know how to explain it, but I get the gist of it. It's trying to say like maybe it's trying to say yeah, he's a father, but he also had a childhood like him. I'm not sure.
No, you do it. This is how you do it. You sort it out. So
Yeah.
you're doing all right. Look at what you're saying.
It's like you can't be an adult without having been a kid.
A bad start. It's a logical conclusion. Go ahead.
The state of a child is what teaches us, is what teaches him.
Go ahead.
Oh, that's what I meant. The state of being a child is what teaches human beings.
The child is the one with the wisdom.
Yes.
We create all these problems for ourselves.
Right.
It's the child that's the wise one. You ever see like grandparents? I mean, my grandparents were gone before I was born, but I get a kick out of my brother and my sisters and my in-laws with their grandchildren. They're completely different human beings than they were when I was around them. They're like kind of tough and hard and but around a child, they're so old, they have the wisdom of the child. Like, you can teach me. Look at how wondrous you think everything is. Look at how excited you get when you get a little thing, right? Because in the middle period of our lives, right, we don't even enjoy most of the things we get because we're so busy getting them and going on to the next things that we're creating more and more problems that we've lost our sense of what is life.
Appreciation.
Appreciation of the little things that you can value. Obviously, it's very difficult to apply that rationale to a capitalistic society because we'll never be, we live in a box, But ultimately, Wordsworth is saying that the wisdom comes from that belief that you're immortal in the sense that you have the faith that there's still the life after. So it's kind of the antithesis of the reasonable approach of Blake He's kind of like more of the idealistic approach of, and I mean, there is something to it. And so he gave us an example. You just have to look at a little kid sometimes. And that's why the people I like often like to be around little kids, because they run around and get so excited about little things, and you see the kids happy, and you're like, I just gave you a Hershey bar, and you're happy. You know, like, I have a $85,000 car that arrived yesterday. I'm not really, no, that's not me. But say I had an $85,000 car that arrived yesterday, and I'm still not enjoying it. I'm looking to the next car or a boat now. So it's like it's the wonder of a child. So the poem is kind of lengthy, and you might use it in your discussion. I can't go through it in as detail I would love to, but one of the question I will ask, just based on, yes, I can do it with these two stanzas. What tenets of romantic literature are in these first two stanzas?
Nature.
Excellent. It's in nature, right? What else? What? I. This is not, maybe it's Blake, but Blake wasn't a chimney sweeper, it can't be Blake, right? It's like, there was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, he starts off with the importance of nature. We got so bogged down with Blake starting off with the revolutionary spirit that we are in this place where there was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, so we know it's past, right? So it's a recollection, which is on the title. You would have known that going into it. The earth and every common sight to me did seem apparelled in celestial light, right? Celestial light, definitely reference to the heavens, the glory and the freshness of a dream. It is not now as it hath been of yore. Turn whatsoever as I may by night and day. The things which I have seen, I now can see no more. It's a very touching start. He's lost it. He's lost his attachment to nature, the beauty of life, right? And right away, again, you see meadow, grove, and stream, so nature is established. And as Luke points out, there's the eye. Right? And we know we're reading the poem, so the artwork does survive. But when we get towards the end, we discover that he also points out that the artist does not, which is obvious, obviously. The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. The moon doth with delight look around her when the heavens are bare. Waters on a starry night are beautiful and fair. The sunshine is a glorious birth, but yet I know where I go, that there hath passed away a glory from the earth. What is distinctly different form-wise between Blake and Wordsworth that probably threw you off when you were reading the poem? Let's read those first two stanzas. See how I struggled with them? Why? Why you probably struggled with them too. Remember this from high school? First and third lines rhyme, second, fourth lines rhyme, fifth and seventh lines rhyme, sixth and eighth. There's no rhyme scheme. There is, but there's not the standard rhyme scheme. He's broken form. He has not broken free from the church and state. He's broken free from form. It's a different kind of a revolution. He points out that all poetry prior to this was kind of artificial because they're forcing everything into a rhyme scheme. How can you have a spontaneous overflow of emotion in a rhyme scheme? We don't think in rhyme. Rhyme is art, right? It's shape. We think the way we think. Let it flow out of you. He still adheres to a rhyme scheme, but it's not consistent, which is Fahim points out right away, thank God he started us with this, saves us a ton of time. Reading it is clumsy, because you're looking for the rhyme. And it's not a rhyme scheme, so then you have to pause and read it again, right? Because I didn't do it on purpose even, it happened because it happens to me all the time. I'm looking for the next rhyme. And oh, there isn't, so I have to pause. And now by pausing, I have a chance, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It keeps you from reading it too fast by writing it in a way that makes you sort of sit down and join him in the meadow or whatever, you know? So
Excellent.
you're there.
It makes you check yourself, like if you feel what he's writing. Because it happened to me. You know, I started off reading, okay, I'm gonna pay attention to this and read, right? First 2 stanzas, 3 stanzas, okay, fine, and then I go down and I'm like, oh wait, I gotta re-understand what he says, so I gotta go back and read again. So yeah, it makes sense. I agree to that.
He makes you stop. When you're reading a rhyme, you could go, you know, I mean, roses are red, you know, whatever. Like, there's rhymes like you're like, okay, I don't even hear it anymore. Like with the music many people listen to. Like I remember people exposing me to rap music, and I was like, that's clever. It's like an intense little rhyme thing going on there. Like, it's very clever. And I'm not trying to be hip. I'm not hip. I'm old. But I liked it. I was like, oh, that's kind of really cool. That speed. And then I started reading the words, and I was like, what is this? Like heavy stuff in this. But you could sing it out loud and not realize what you're singing. But now, you're gonna have to realize it. He's making you pause. Great word. He's making you slow down. He's making you think. Excellent work. Let's do it just quickly. There was a time when Meadow, Grove, and Stream, there was a time when Meadow, Grove, and Stream, the earth and every common sight to me did seem. Okay, there's your rhyme. But it's not a standard line, right? It's crooked. It's like, it's not equal in beats and measurements. But I still was like, okay, I got the rhyme. Like I got there. Okay, good. When's the next one coming up, right? Apparel in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. It's throwing me off now. What's happening here? It is not now as it hath been of yore. Turn whatsoever as I may by night or day. So this rhymes, but where's the rhyme for your more? So these lines rhyme, but this line rhymes with that rhyme. You've thrown me completely off. I can't read this fast. Because I can't read through it. I have to stop. And I can still hear a rhyme, I can still hear the music, but the music is conscious. It's not rhythmic. The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. Back-to-back rhyme. And we could find a pattern, but it would take a lot more time, and it's not necessary for us for this class. The moon doth with delight. Oh, you're waiting to hear another rhyme here. What's the rhymes with delight, right? The rainbow comes and goes, and lovely is the rose. Okay, you just understands it. A. The moon doth with delight look around her when her heavens are bare. A. B. C. Waters on a starry night. Okay, now it rhymes this. Okay, so it's B, C, B, right? Are beautiful and fair. B, okay, B, C, B. B, C, B, C. The sunshine is a glorious birth, but yet I know wherever I go that there hath passed away a glory from this earth. So there's no rhyme to this. He's paused you, he's making you think, and you've got to hear it.
No rhymes with no, so there's like a little internal rhyme going on.
Oh, he's got tons of wonderful internal rhymes going on too. Well pointed out, Luca. I didn't want to go into too much detail, but that's great if you caught it. There's internal rhymes. That's the line rhymes with the third word rhymes with the fifth word in one. It's amazing what he's doing. I don't know, this is definitely a spontaneous overflow of emotion, right? But it's been organized. This is not, he's not winging it. He sat down, he says, I'm shaping this to make you read it in a way that you'll understand my spontaneous overflow of emotion, but you're gonna understand it the way I want you to understand it. I'm gonna make you slow down. It's an amazing work of literature. We'll focus on, I gotta play with that, okay. We'll focus on, I'm sorry?
It's very long, actually.
Oh yeah, it's a very long poem, but it's worth the dedication if you can find it. But again, I know from having looked at what your majors are and stuff like that, I looked through that stuff to see where I am at, that I don't necessarily expect you to devote your life to poetry. But it will enlighten you if you understand it. It makes things easier. If you can read poetry, you can read anything. Because it's really difficult. And philosophy, poetry, really. I'm gonna focus on, and again, Fahim got us there. It looks like I planned it. I called up Fahim and said, listen, you're gonna say this, but I didn't. Fahim just came over on his own because it's an important way he started it off with, like, I look at my younger brother and I say, wow, like, he's still going to play handball, put him in the handball court, in the schoolyard, he's still doing things like that. I'm busy, right? But this is not a young man. This is now an older man, older than me, dare I say. Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass or of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind, in the primal sympathy which having been must ever be, in the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death, in the years that bring the philosophic mind. So good. Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower, what is he saying? In that, so nothing can bring back what? Specifically.
Childhood.
What's that?
Like childhood innocence, you don't
Excellent. Nothing's gonna bring back my innocence. Nothing's gonna make me a child again. Right? Then I was like, when I read, sometimes when I read this poem, because I had to read it again the other day, sometimes I get mad at Wordsworth. I'm like, stop whining. Grow up, be tough, stop complaining. And then I get to this part, and he becomes a great poet again to me, because he's like, because I feel like, yeah, you're old now, but you were young once.
You got it too.
Yeah.
There's kids cleaning chimneys and you never did.
Excellent, it's a great comparison with Blake, excellent connection, right? So he got it, he had a good life, and it's gonna be something I'm going to talk about today in a little bit. We will grieve not. So don't look at the young and be, again, not at you, I'm talking about older people. Like, don't look at them and be resentful or grieve that you don't have it anymore, right? Enjoy that I was there. I did have it. We would rather find strength in what remains behind, like a grandparent looking at a grandchild, right? That's a product of my bloodline, if you will. So it's like, it stays up, it stays there. I'm using that as an example, it doesn't have to be that. It is, some people it's their art. In the primal sympathy which having been must ever be, right? Where our nature, our primal nature knows that long after I'm gone, there will be more people coming out, hopefully enjoying life, hopefully celebrating life as easily as Wordsworth did, and not Blake's horrors. In the soothing thoughts that spring out of human suffering, in the faith that looks through death, in years that bring the philosophic mind. Now he doesn't rely on, as pointed out, I'm sorry, I gotta remember your name.
Mao.
I was gonna say, we'll work on it in a bit. Like you had suggested before, it's like, you can't be innocent or ignorant anymore.
Yes.
I'm gonna die, right? But now I have to rely on what to make me feel hopeful? One word he uses. The sweet faith. My faith. I have to believe that I'm gonna go on. I have to believe that. And just don't worry about it because you can't stop it. You can't stop mortality, right? Reflect on it. Be philosophical about it. And then he hits a final home run here, I think, in literature. And you'll hear this quoted. You'll hear Splendor in the Grass quoted throughout in things, in movies and stuff like that. There's a movie actually titled Splendor in the Grass. He mentioned again, he goes back to, let's talk about this from here. The clouds that gather around the setting sun to take a sober coloring from an eye that have kept watch over man's mortality. Another race had been, and other palms are won. There's always going to be like a new Olympics, if you will. There's going to be new victories and new celebrations for new people. Mine are done though. Thanks to the human, this is the part I want to focus on. Thanks to the human heart by which we live, thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears, to me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. It's a nice little line. What does he mean? To me, the meanest flower that blows, right, can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. The meanest flower is metaphoric. What is the flower he's talking about? Considering the title of the poetry, the poem. The meanest one, or the worst one, if you will. Okay,
This is memory from childhood.
I don't know. My worst memories
Still good now.
are nicer now. I think of the girl that broke my heart, right? At least Scully, we still stay in touch. I don't look at her and go, I wish I could be 8 again. No, I look at it and go like this. Oh, it was nice. Oh, you broke my heart. It's okay. Like, you know, it taught me things. It changed me. But it was the worst memories at that time that still give me like, no, it's nice that I lived through that. It's nice that I experienced that. It's nice that I was a human being, right? Especially as you get older, you're not going to necessarily do the same things as you did when you were young. So you can still rely on your memories to make you warm. It's kind of nice, right? I like what Wordsworth does here. And I think we're okay with time because I gotta make sure that you guys got a leg up on this writing assignment. Do we like this poem? I like this poem. I mean, I think if you go back into it, I think it'll really, it's really very touching. The heavy in nature, very, very heavy in nature, definitely reflective, spontaneous overflow of emotion, reflected in tranquility in nature, reflecting on an entire life, and not being embittered. Now we get to a poem that, even though I had to cut like a lot of things out of this class, I could never cut John Keats because he's like my favorite of all of them. Even really big. It's hard to access him though. John Keats' brief biography. His father was a stableman who marries his boss's daughter, right? So Blake's got like blue collar and white collar in his life, if you will, right? Working class people and wealthy people. Father dies though when Keats is 9. Pretty intense, right? Mother dies of TB when Keats is 14. TB is tuberculosis, guys. I don't know if everybody knew that, but so Keats is an orphan at 14 years old, right? Keats is a pugnacious as a young man. He likes to fight. He's a tough little guy, right? He's a little guy, very little guy. He's a tough little guy. He engages in fist fights and playing practical jokes, right? Very quote-unquote boy's life, if you will. He likes to, torture his friends. I tortured my friends when I was growing up too. They tortured me. Sort of horrible thing. One time, as a practical joke, I was living with one of my friends when I was younger, and as a practical joke, to get even with something I did to him, when we were at a wedding where it was a blonde wig, right? Like, people behaving like crazy people, right? And he was about 6'5", 6'6". He's a big, really big guy. And I coming out of the shower, going into the apartment, and he had put the blonde wig on and kneeled into his Timberland boots like a demon troll, right? And I came out of the shower and I was like, ah! I screamed at the top of my lungs. It terrified me. But he was getting even because we had girls coming over, dates coming over one day, and we wanted to clean the entire apartment. So he had decided he would clean the shower. So we had glass doors in the shower. So he closed the glass doors, and he was in the shower cleaning it. So I walked over to the glass doors and pressed my face and hands against it, so my silhouette just was coming through. He turned around. He screamed at the top of his lungs. I really got to him, so it was a practical joke that could have led to a heart failure for both of us. Don't do it, in other words, don't do it. It's a horrible thing to do to somebody. But he's saying, I'm in the tub with soap and water. I'm going to broke my neck. Too bad. Keats has an opportunity to become a surgeon, right? He's that smart. He's crazy, crazy smart. It's an apothecary back then, but he passes on it. A surgeon was more than, it wasn't like a surgeon in our day and age. It was like somebody that would prescribe like potions, medications, and stuff like that. He would do could do surgery, like cut into you and stuff like that, but most of surgery back then consisted of amputation. It wasn't like, or bleeding, you putting like things on so you would bleed you. So it wasn't like he was a modern day doctor. He decides to become a poet, which is something I like about him because he makes a move, right? His early losses lead him to ponder his mortality. He can't get away the fact that he lost his mother and his father so young, so he's always thinking about his life. Avoids friendships with other poets. The poets we didn't read significantly Shelley. I'm a very great admirer of Percy Shelley. He's married to Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. She's a romantic. She's one of the romantic canon. We can't read her. Obviously, you should read her. Frankenstein's an amazing book. But he's married to her. But Shelley's like kind of a kid that was rich but got abused as a rich kid. So he went to all the best schools but got abused. But Shelley wants to be friends with Keats. Shelley has a kind of what I think in modern times you call a throuple relationship. He was involved with Lord Byron, was his best friend and his companion, if you will. And his wife was married to Mary Shelley. And they all kind of like dated each other, kind of. It's kind of a very modern for those people. But Shelley and Lord Byron wanted Keats to befriend them, and Keats was not like, it wasn't like he was homophobic or anything like that. He was just like, I have no time for this, which he would say because of his fear of his death. He was very afraid that he was going to die. He feared other poets would also influence his work. When you're a writer, you read other people's writing, you start incorporating theirs, you lose your voice, so he didn't want to lose his voice. Shelley and Lord Byron mocked his poem publicly. He wrote a poem called Endymion. Keats believed the mocking was due to the fact that he came from a different social class. So again, we have this situation where the poor kid is getting picked on by the rich kids because he, like Blake, he doesn't fit in, right? Not only does he not fit in, he chooses not to fit in, which is kind of bold, right? He could go further if he befriends them, but he doesn't. And so they mock him. But like Blake before, he doesn't care. So I don't care. Keats struggles with understanding the pain and suffering in the world. He doesn't get it. Like, why are we making life so miserable for each other? Having been exposed to his parents' death so early, he's like, looks at it like, it's so short.
It is what it is. Like,
yeah. Why are we making life harder on other people? Like, which is something I adhere to. He sees melancholy in delight and pleasures in pain. There is a sense of sadness that you get some kind of warmth from because you're feeling something. Like in pain, like if you're in pain, he says there's something in those things that really should define your personality and define your poetry. So there's something in there. Starts coughing up blood in 1820 due to tuberculosis. So in 1820, he starts coughing up blood. Tuberculosis is kind of a breakdown of your lungs. They turn to you dying inside, really, and you'll cough up bits of lung. He knows of it because he saw his mother die of it. He writes the book we're going to read, Poet of Grecian between 1819 and 1820. So he knows he's dying. He dies at 25. Unbelievable, right? I mean, 25. All the things that's happened in my life from the time of 25 to now. Shut down at 25. Just ain't fair. Unlike Wordsworth, who lives to be 80, right? So Wordsworth has his, like Thiem pointed out, the time to recollect. Keats doesn't, and he knows it. So this poem is when he's dying. He writes this poem, which informs the poem. Keats was confronted with his own mortality and Aurora's sense of the term while he was still very young. Nevertheless, his work, most specifically Poet of Grecian Urn, the letters, is an essential, if not quintessential, work in the Romantic period of literature. Keep this in mind when you're reading. So we discussed, again, we're going through this relatively fast, but Romantic movement in literature has been clarified. Nature, I, Artwork lasts, we don't. Keats is very aware of that, right, at this point, right? Spontaneous overflow of emotion, recollected tranquility. Let me put a abbreviation on that. Did you read this poem? Did you find it challenging?
Yeah.
This is intense. This is intense. Like the narrative for Wordsworth is flowing, but tough. This is like, what the hell are they talking about? But when we go through it, we'll see if we can feel. Luke, did you like it?
I did.
Yeah, I think you would. Oh, yeah, I'll share with you though. Ode on a Grecian Urn by John Keats. Thou still unravished bride of twilight, thou lost the child of silence and slow time, silken historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape of days of mortal, or of both, content or tales of arcade? What many gods are these? What beings love? What men pursue? What struggles to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild pheasants? He does a Blakean thing there where he asks a whole bunch of questions, right? And he's going to answer them in the next stanza. What is he asking? Who or what is he asking the questions of? Like sometimes the poet's asking the reader, right? He's not asking the reader. He's asking something else. Picture this.
He's asking like the reality,
What's that?
like what is depicted on you. Like an urn is like a pot. So like if you know like in Hercules, like the beginning of the movie, like there's like stories depicted on the pot.
Absolutely.
He's asking like what is this I see? What is that? What is the story? And he's saying it in a great way, I guess.
He's asking the pot, the urn. Now there's a dilemma of what the urn is, but I understood it from a modern understanding. He's sitting there writing, coughing blood up half, he probably on and off, right? Maybe not while he's writing it, but he knows he's gonna die, right? He's sitting there writing, and he has an urn there. And he's turning it, or maybe getting up and walking around it. I picture it in my heart of hearts and going like this. Because an urn has all that stuff written on it. So he said, what are these things on you? What story are you trying to tell me? What's the irony of him asking an urn in a modern sensibility?
Does he know that he's dying? So I think he's trying to say like, some things that he's saying, like the deities or morals, like, so like the higher beings, like supreme god or goddess, like that, and mortals, that we're gonna die, and he knows he's gonna die, so he's trying to figure out, so when I die, where am I going?
It's not bad.
Is there a higher place, or am I just going to be just in loom? I think that
I've always
because
I'm sorry.
because he was so focused on, because his parents died young, and then he just always felt that he was gonna die young, and now he is young and he's dying.
Excellent. I mean, I always brought my spirituality to those readings as well. But there's a lot, there's interesting parts of it because it's written on the urn, and he could be asking. He's asking the urn, which is only going to answer him in what the art is. So he could be asking like, is there something? Can you give me the mystery of life, if you will? Excellent.
Is he questioning the nature?
It's good.
I think I'm not.
Well, the absence of nature. The urn's not, well, we'll talk about it. I'm just building on what Fahim, because I know he read the poem, so I'm building on what he just suggested. What were you gonna say?
I was asking, during this time, did they put the ashes in the urn? They did, during this time. Was that the irony that he's literally gonna go into the urn later on?
Excellent. I always read it this way. I had arguments with professors because they said, like, Luca points out the clearest definition. An urn is a pot. That's what it is. It could be held to carry water, wine, whatever it is, but it's a pot. But I argued with my professor in college because I said, it's where you put your ashes. And he goes, no, not back then. And I said, then why are all these pictures on the outside of the urn? Looks like the pictures on the outside of the urn are celebrating the life. the life of the person in the urn. And we have, of course, argued, but you can come up with whatever conclusion you guys want to come up with. But I thought of it as an urn is where you go with put your ashes in, or something. But again, I was arguing with him, but I said I always stick to my guns, so always stick to your guns, if you will. He's looking at this urn, he's coughing up the blood, he's looking at the pictures and saying, what are you trying to, what story are you trying to tell me, right? So let's go into, now we know, right? Now we can read it with a little bit more confidence. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore ye pipe, soft pipes play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared. Pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, whatever can those trees be bare. Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss, nor winning near the goal yet, do not grieve, she cannot fade. Thou, though, hast not thy bliss, forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. It's a beautiful little sentiment. So the pictures on the urn, there's one, what is on the urn? What is on that stanza? What is he saying is on the urn?
Music.
Someone playing an instrument?
Somebody play an instrument. That's the music. It's somebody's playing an instrument. Can you hear it?
No.
No, unless you're insane. Not right, but he's like, heard melodies are sweeter, but those unheard are sweeter. I can't hear the music, and that's why it's better. Why?
It could be anything, and your imagination is like.
Your imagination could take you to the highest place. If you heard the song, it might suck, right? But you're not hearing it. Oh, it's probably beautiful when it's played. It's probably the greatest of all songs, right? Pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. So he'll never stop playing. He'll always forever be playing on the urn. Always playing his song, which is wonderful, right? Because he's eternal on the urn. I'm not. Outside of it. But you can play forever. And what season is it clearly?
Spring.
Excellent. It's spring, right? The trees can never be bare. It's always an eternal spring. It's always beautiful out, right? Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss. Though winning near the goal, yet do not grieve. She cannot fade. Thou though hast not thy bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. So what else is on the urn?
Love.
You love her like almost missing.
Two lovers almost kissing, right? It's like the two lovers, like, maybe he's reaching in, he's making, we were all young and beautiful once. Well, you guys still are, but I was trying to get your arm around Lisa Scully at the movie theater, right? And if she let me put her arm around her,
So
my
it's like,
arm would be asleep for most of the movie, but I still wasn't gonna let go, right? Because I got there, right? It's like a beautiful moment.
so it's like a young love, like a youthful love.
Perfect. And they're about to kiss. But the only thing better than getting the kiss is knowing it's coming. Does that make sense? Knowing that she's going to receive the kiss, or he's going to receive the kiss, depending on, I'm trying to be gender specific here, that you are almost there, it's going to happen, that's bliss. It's a blissful moment. They'll never kiss, but he'll forever be trapped in that moment of bliss. Right? And then he goes a little bit misogynistic there. She cannot fade, right? She'll never disappear. She'll never leave you, right? Thou, though thou hast not thy bliss, you never reach the kiss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. You'll always be young and beautiful. Eternal, yeah.
I took it as like the literal ink on the pot. So like, because, I mean, things do fade, but not in a lifetime. You can't really notice it on a relic where the ink will stay there unless like someone paints over it.
Okay.
It'll be there.
That's
for
cool.
a very long time.
That's cool, because that would go into what the Romantics believe, that art lasts forever, although, okay, I like it. I can go with that. Happy boughs, like those are boughs, excuse me. The branches below, that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring a dew. And happy melodies, unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. more happy love, more happy, happy love, exclamation point, forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever panting and forever young, all breathing new passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead, a parching tongue. He's kind of like, what a wonderful thing that's happening on this earth. What a wonderful life. What a wonderful experience, right? And then he goes into, who are these coming to the sacrifice? Again, he's looking at the urn in its entirety. So he's seeing, like, it's a celebration, it's a festival, right? To what green altar or mysterious priest leadest thou heifer lowing at the sky? So it's somebody leading a cow to the slaughter, right? Dressed up in a pagan ritual way, dressed up for the slaughter, for the ultimate, like, where they're all gonna eat him. But he'll never be eaten, right? Because he's never gonna get there. He's never going to be actually cut. The on the urn is not the cow being cut to pieces and everybody eating them. The on the urn is the cow going to the slaughter, if you will. What little town by river or seashore or mountain built with peaceful citadel is empty of its folk, this pious moral? So we're assuming that they're not in the city, they're in the country, right? It's more of a rustic, pastoral shot on the poem, on the urn. That little town by streets forevermore will silent be and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can never return, right? So he's moved. But he is also what? Does that say it? I heard that. I heard it. Dying. He's dying. O Attic shape, fair attitude, with greed of marble men and maidens overwrought, with forest branches and trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity. Cold pastoral. There's a shift. What happens to our friend Keats in this moment? Right? Sitting there writing, wow, look at that, they're never gonna kiss, but they're always gonna be in love, he's never gonna grow old, it's always gonna be spring. It's kind of beautiful. And then all of a sudden, oh, Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought, with forest branches and trodden weed. Thou silent form, dost tease us of thought, out of thought, as doth eternity. Cold pastoral, exclamation point. What's he saying? What did you realize there? Yeah. Sorry. See, right there, but he's still talking to the urn, you're right, but he's realizing that, like you're saying, I'm dying, and I'm looking at this cold pastoral. Why is it cold pastoral? Nature being key to romantic poetry. Why is it a cold pastoral? Pastoral is nature.
Pastoral's nature?
Yeah, pastoral pasture, like,
Oh, yeah, 'cause I looked it up, sheep grazing. Just as a guess, saying it's cold, that there's no, despite it depicting a story of life, and seeing how so much shit, it's very like cold and dead, like literally dead nature. It's presenting the life in, well, at first the emotions can be really feeling more when you look at it. Take a step back, it's like, it's ended. It's over.
going out into nature. Did you hear something saying? You're right there. And it's all the words that are coming together. You gotta jot them down, because you got it if you present an argument on this. It's great.
Limitation of the life experiences you're gonna have.
It's there, you're connecting dots here.
Yeah, that's
It's there, you're connecting dots. It's like, yeah.
He just pictures the light, like over the stories, kind of like with the forest branches and trodden weed, everything's broken down, there's no spring. It's just,
Nice. Well,
It's gonna leave
Go ahead.
it longer.
This is the close control. It means immortality always there, and beauty all the time, no matter you die or not die, nobody cares, and the beauty always there. That's a few sentences after, the beauty is true, and the truth is the beauty.
right, well, he goes on to that, and I want to get to that, but it's key. The key is where he loses it with cold pastoral. It's not nature.
it's or
It's an urn.
Oh, it's ended.
I'm not out in it. I'm sitting here writing about a friggin' urn. It's not, the romantic poetry is not to be the art. Why is he understanding at this moment that the art really doesn't matter? I'm studying the art and I am about to die. Why am I not part of it? It's a cold pastoral. It's cold. It's on a urn. It's not real. It's not nature. It's artwork in nature. It's not really nature. And I'm discovering it now. It is a cold picture of nature. It is not real. This is where we can discuss, like, part of the romantic movement is the artwork lives, but the artist does not. When you're an artist at 25, would you rather your artwork to live or for you to live? I want to be alive. I want to be alive. Like, I would rather be alive than my poem survive. Great. I'm wonderful. I'm a genius. I'm a dead genius. I'd rather be a living, modestly intelligent person. When old days shall this generation thou shalt remain in the midst of other woe. Right? That'll stay. The earth will stay. Then our friends, to man to whom thou hast say, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. So at that very moment, I consider, and there's an explanation, I consider Keats waking up from that the poetry is not as important as the life. Beauty is truth, truth beauty. Now, these lines are one of the most discussed lines in all of literary, English and American English literature written in English language in history, because the interpretations vary based on whether quotation marks were placed. In one version, he has the quotation marks in one place, in another version, he has quotation marks in a different place. All right, so I give you from the Norton Anthology, the insights. Let's see what time I got. I got a few minutes. Okay. Not much. I'm giving you from the Norton Anthology. I think that Keats wakes up from his reverie of writing and reflecting on the urn and realizes I'd rather be out in the world living life, my final minutes, than be sitting here writing about this urn. Scholars disagree. Many scholars disagree. I'm considered a scholar too, but many disagree with me. And they say, no, it's not what he's feeling. It's written on the urn. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty as well. It's written on the urn. So it could be written on the urn, or I think that Keats, who has not said the I yet, steps out of himself and shouts out those words. Beauty is truth, truth is beauty. It's a spontaneous overflow of emotion, but not recollected in tranquility. It's his realization that he's going to die, and this is over. What the urn is offering me, it's timeless. It does fit into the romantic movement. I'll fit into the romantic movement maybe, but I'd rather be alive. But this is so you're gonna have. I would read through this. It covers everything. Captures. I give a brief insights. I give the whole explanation there in your notes. So I would suggest reading them over. But then there's the controversy of the lines. According to Norton Anthology of English Literature, Volume 2, 6th edition, the one I use, there is a discrepancy as to where the quotation marks go around the last two lines of the poem, quoted in Grecian Urn. A footnote on the poem says, the quotation marks around this phrase are around the volume of poems, are found in the volume, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, are found in the volume of poems Keats published in 1820, but there are no quotation marks in another version that same year or in the transcripts of the poem made by Keats's friends. So, where did he want the quotation? He didn't want the quotation marks there, then it can't be on the urn. If he wanted the quotation marks to be what he said, how he would do that and not lose the rhyme scheme, or is it written on the urn? It's up to your interpretation. You don't have to interpret it, just small for you as a possibility. This discrepancy has multiplied the diversity of critical interpretation of the last two lines. Critics disagree whether the whole of these lines are said by the urn, or beauty is truth, truth beauty by the urn, and the rest by the lyric speaker, where the ye in the last line is addressed to the lyric speaker, to the readers, to the urn, or the figures on the urn, whether all you know is that beauty is truth, or this plus statement in lines 46 to 48, and whether beauty is truth is a profound medical proposition, an overstatement representing a limited point of view of the urn, or something that are simply nonsensical. If you look at my brief insights, I tell you my position. Okay, so this is Norton's Anthology's controversy. The brief insights are my position on it. So if you were going to write about Owner and Grecian Urn, right, we're going to give you an assignment. If you're going to write about Owner and Grecian Urn, you got to read those. And you can quote me, and you can quote Norton Anthology, because I'm giving you the pages. You can use any poem you like. If this poem doesn't sing to you, if you will, don't write about it. All right? But if it sings to you, you have information. You have information on all of them that you're going to write about. I still have 6 minutes before I have to teach you the next part of the lesson. What do you think? What do you think happened to Keats? Is it just written on the urn? What do you think? Is Keats the speaker when he says beauty is truth, truth, beauty? What do you think? Go ahead.
I think he's talking to the depictions on the urn, because of the word choice, like he chose to say beauty and truth. And I think for the urn, that's true, because it depicts a beautiful thing, and it'll never change. But maybe for people in real life, that's not the case. You know,
It's a good interpretation. So you say it's written on the urn.
no, he's saying it to the urn, saying like you are beautiful, and that's all. That's it. That's all you'll ever be. You're like the truth for you is that you're like beautiful and an art piece, but that's all. That's it.
What makes you beautiful is your immortality. In a lot of ways, or the fact that you're not a work of art, or
In the art aspect.
excellent. That would be very much in the romantic movement idea. Any other ideas? Go ahead.
This is not related to what we just asked. Just a quick question. When critics disagree, like something nonsensical of the art that poets write, did they ever take into account their psychological states of these poets?
I keep going. I don't think so.
Because I'm wondering if they just like completely, just discredit or just invalidate poets because of their, because he is near his deathbed and he's dying. So how do we know exactly what he's trying to say if we don't understand?
What is he trying to tell us at the end? Like, and I always read the bio of authors. That's why I included it for you guys, and I give history. Because how could you separate the poem from the poet in consideration of their circumstances? And you're using psychologically. This would be a psychological breakdown for you, right? I would imagine if I go home today and I start coughing up blood, I don't think I'm the same guy as I was before I started, right? I'm changed. My thinking has changed. My whole conception of life has changed, right? So I always argued with my professor. I said, how could you leave out the bio of this guy? He's gonna be dead before, he might not finish it. Like, we don't know. Like, is he even satisfied that he finished it? Is he satisfied that he got everything he wanted in there? Or did he just finally go, I'm just too tired to keep going, right? I mean, you gotta bring that into it. I don't think a lot of times when people just say it's gloss over it. How can you gloss over the person who wrote it? So I'm in your camp. I think it's a lazy interpretation in some ways. Anything else? And his life experiences too, his informed life experiences, right? I watched my mom die of tuberculosis, like, how would I not know that what's gonna happen to me is going to be brutal? There's no medication, right? There is opium. That's the only way to kill pain. Any other insights? I reflect on it. It's the most, to know these lines You'll be able to hold your own in any literature conversation. Because these lines are that significant in literature. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all you know on earth, all you need to know. Okay. All right. Let's see where we're at here. We had 1 minute, we could have kept talking this. All right, organizing a scholarly response for our next discussion board assignment. I don't want you to kill yourselves with this. I would say you could do it in a hearty paragraph or a hearty 3 paragraphs. Some people feel restricted by 1 paragraph. I like it in 1 paragraph form because then I can identify. You can say a lot of really smart things in 1 paragraph. Don't hear me or I won't jump. See, that's my phone telling me that I gotta move on to this part of the day. I guess panic. Structuring a scholarly argument. It's very simple. Okay? Statement. I've actually done it for you. I put it out there for you the other day. But now I filled in the pieces. Okay, so I'm going to stand. I'm sorry. I promise I won't erase it. Statement, quotation, explanation, transition statement. I put slash quotation because I'll demonstrate how. Explanation. So it's statement, quotation, explanation, statement, quotation, explanation. Does that make sense? Right? That's the structure. You can write more quotations, but it's got to stick to the same statement you made. Does that make sense? Otherwise, if you want to make a new statement, you got to start a new paragraph. All right? Or a part of the new statement. I'll show you that before we write our papers. But consider this, whatever you're writing about now could be your research paper. So the effort you're putting into this was not in vain. You'll have to write other things throughout the semester, but you can incorporate it into your research paper. So if you put a lot of thought into it, you've got a pretty good start on your research paper. And I'll feed you more information once I know what you're writing about. So I made a simple statement, right? This is how I suggest that when I teach English 101 and I teach English 102, this is how I suggest you should do it. I am notorious for telling students to buy index cards, right? And for longer papers, because I would write a statement on each index card, the quotation I was going to use on each index card, and the explanation I'm going to use on each index card before I write my papers. So then I have them organized, and then I can shift them around and reorganize them, and then really writing the paper is just taking all my thoughts in order. That's the weapon I suggest. You don't have to use that. I'm just saying I use it when I write longer works. Statement. So I made a brief statement to show you how the structure works. It appears William Blake is excluded from the Romantics due to his limited higher education. Got that from the notes, right? It's a statement, right? That's your statement, right? You're not stating, well, I'll show you in a second, but you're not stating his education. You're stating that the reason he's excluded from the Romantics is because of his education. I made that statement. I'm stopping the ball rolling. Quotation, primary or secondary source. You could use either one. You don't have to use the primary source first. You'll see that I'm using the secondary source first in this example, okay? Even though Blake didn't go to college, right, he attended art school at 10 and was apprenticed to an engraver at 14. Actually, I made a mistake, so I'll be unforgiving of you. Right, so there's your statement, right? Then as your quotation, even though Blake didn't go to college, he attended art school, that's a direct quotation from your notes, right? And it's not a direct quotation from your notes, but was apprenticed to an engraver at 14, direct quotation from your notes. Parker, 7-11 class. This is just to give you an idea of how to do it, okay? I'll expand on it more, but just so I can see that you know where to put parentheses. The only thing you're using in most citations is the last name of the author and the page number. In this case, There's no page number because it was part of the announcements. All right, so there's your quotation. This is, once you make a statement, and finding a quotation is not that difficult. Finding the right quotation can be challenging, though. This is where it gets hard. Explanation. Clearly, Blake's success might be attributed to his informal education as well as his work experience, which together with his insight into the human condition made him accessible to a mass audience. I would expand on that explanation more, but that would be the way to tie in the explanation. You understand, guys? Is it getting, Tom, raise your hand if you're confused. Okay, there's your explanation. Expand your explanation. As I said, the more you expand your explanation, the easier your paper will be because you'll have this much information involved. And you'll get better practice at it. So your explanation is all you, but the trick is, might be attributed. Like, don't say it's a fact. It's not. It's your speculation. All of our arguments are our speculation. You put words in like that. Might be attributed, could be attributed to, it is possible. All those words give you a lot of room to say a lot of things that could be wrong, but can't be proven wrong. It's literature, it's not science or math. Math and science you can prove wrong. You can't prove it wrong, just better arguments. Whatever argument you get, it'll be good with me, as long as you prove it. Then you, after your explanation, you transfer into transition statement and quotation. For example, you've made a statement up here, you've given your quotation, you've given your explanation, but now to expand on your explanation, you have to find something in the primary source to prove what you're saying, or the secondary source. Does that make sense? For example, 2 lines from Auguries of Innocence. I chose a poem you guys didn't do because, but I mentioned, some were born to sweet delight, some were born to endless night. Quotation, direct quotation. The reader is now grounded. He knows what you're talking about, right? In relationship to your statement. Demonstrates a life experience and an insightful exposure to the class system. You would expand on that possibly or not. That would be up to you. But there's your statement and your quotation. Then your explanation. Blake recognizes the injustices. I put the ellipsis here, meaning whatever you want. I don't want to tell you too much because then I kind of sway you in my direction. I don't want you to sway you in my direction. I want you to have your own direction, right? Blake recognizes the injustices, ellipsis. It could be said that the Romantics excluded Blake long after he excluded them. That's it. Statement, and go back to the statement and make sure you reference what you said at the beginning to tie it together. This paragraph, right, this is not a paragraph, this is an outline of a paragraph. This is what I would use index cards for. What do I want to say? Do I want to use this? I want to use Blake. First thing you got to choose is a poem. I don't know what poem you want to use. I want to use Blake. What do I want to talk about Blake? What do I want to reference in? It's going to be, you're going to be writing about one of the poems, so I'll send you our announcements. Write out, this is the poem I want to talk about, this is the statement I want to make, this is the quotation I want to use. The explanation will be voluminous, but you can start it. This is how I want to transition. This is how I want to tie in a secondary source quote, which would be something from the class or something on the announcements, right? Or you can flip that, followed by an explanation. Questions?
So how long we need to write?
I'm going to say write as long as you can prove your point. It could be 1 paragraph though. You write 1 voluminous paragraph, but I'm going to answer in more detail in 1 second. Yeah.
Is it more like observational sort of things, where the statement is something that you notice, or is it more a theme where I take a stance on it?
I'm gonna give you an outline of the point because I'm gonna give you an outline of the question right now. Okay, which will make it easier. How does the poet relate to the? How does the poet choose a poem? So I outline it again. I want it to be clear for you. Choose a poem and demonstrate how the poet relates to the Romantic movement. So that's going to be your argument because you get the most information on it, right? But you can say anything you want within that. Does that make sense? I might get, maybe I'll offer another question, but I know that this will keep you on task and focused on. This paragraph could take, What I want you to learn from this class more than anything is how to use quotations from primary and secondary sources to extend your argument, so your papers don't fall short. Like, a standard paper for college is 5 pages, standard paper. Students often turn in like 4 pages and they panic, right? And then they're making stuff up. If I had you in 101, I would show you how to make a 5-page paper into an 8-page paper, because I would show you how to do it like this. Because now you're not using just your insights, you're using the insights of others to validate your argument and create a lengthy paragraph. Properly cited, of course. Does it make sense? I can get 250 words out of this. You do not have to. I want you to just really demonstrate your insights. Oh, yeah, we got 11 minutes, man. I killed it. All right, so no, I want to have feedback now because I was hoping to get this. This time. What poem? I'm going to go around the room. Everybody has to answer. What poem do you want to use?
Can we use multiple poems?
What?
Can we use multiple poems, or do we have to target one and then?
I would target one poem, and you could put in other insights from other poems to demonstrate, but don't leave behind the one poem you targeted.
Okay.
If you target one poem, that's what you'll be talking about. So you could say, in contrast, right? So and so did this, right? I consider Blake a romantic, so I could make an argument for him being a romantic poet. But you could also discuss him being a romantic in the revolutionary sense of going against church and state. Does that make sense? What poem was you using?
We can choose any from.
Any other. The only one you can't choose is Auguries of Innocence, because we didn't talk about it in class. But other than that, you can use any poem we talked about in class. I'm going to suggest that I'm going to answer Fahim's question in more detail right now, because I think I led you astray. If you're talking about the lamb, you got to talk about the tiger. If you're talking about the tiger, you got to talk about the lamb. Can't write one about one or the other, right? You got to write about both of them because they are inseparable, right? The lamb is such a modest poem.
I'm depicted like I'm between lamb and tiger, or the William Wordsworth's one, the odd imitations. So I'm between those two.
You got a feeling for the Wordsworth piece.
Yeah.
So I would really go. It sounds harder to write about a bigger poem like that.
No, I
but it's
understand.
actually much easier.
No, I know, because I have more information there.
Absolutely.
So
And you have your own insights that you already have. That's why I'm always suggesting writing your insights down in class while I'm talking. If you come up with something, you don't necessarily have to say it to me, but I see Elise writing stuff down all the time. Write stuff down to remind you, so when you have to go back, you're writing down all the time. When you go back to do the work, you got your own thoughts that you felt and thought in the classroom at that time, recollected in tranquility, if you will.
Wordsworth.
You're gonna do the Wordsworth Ode. Okay, good.
I think the Great Monk.
The Great Monk. Okay, that's cool.
I'm also doing the Great Monk.
The Great Monk?
Yeah.
Cool.
She's a great mom.
The Great Monk, a lot of great monks here. Good.
I think I'll do the Urn.
The Urn? I love when people do the Urn, because I love the Urn, but I love when they do any poem. It's not, he's not gonna get better credit. It's just, I get a kick out. Go ahead.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Maybe lamb.
You're gonna do the Lamb and the Tiger.
Or maybe.
You gotta do both of them, right? Lamb and Tiger, because
Both.
you're gonna be talking about innocence and experience, and it's gonna be tricky because the eyes, but you're gonna work it in that you can make it a romantic poem. Or you can say, this is why they leave them out of the romantic poems. You can say whatever you want, in other words, as long as you can prove it. The Grey Monk, a lot of monks in here, a lot of Grey monks. Go ahead.
Also a Great Monk.
How many people are doing a Grey Monk? Raise your hand.
Well, I might choose.
All right. I mean, if you're all Grey monks, right? Talk to each other, help each other out, right? Thursday we are not in class, right? Right. Tomorrow's Thursday, right? Yeah. Thursday we are not in class, right? But you can still communicate with each other and share ideas, and I did it in college. I sat when I had working on papers, I would sit with Juliana Frigius, and we would work on papers together because she had insights that I didn't have, and I'd be like, I disagreed. We'd argue. It was fun. The Grey Monk. army of monks here.
I haven't decided, but I'm gonna either go for the William or Wordsworth or the John Keats.
Okay, okay. So you might be torn between the urn, you're torn between odes.
Yeah, oh, it's,
Yeah, both.
Either the urn or London and Geneva first, or the semi-sweet.
So you got a couple going on here. You're not committed to it, by the way, just because you said the great monk, I'm not gonna go F. You said the monk, no, it's not the way I play. I want you to just start thinking about what you wanna do, so you don't leave here without having made a commitment. To yourself, not to me, to yourself. Not to me, it's a commitment to you. Which one are you?
I really like the chimney sweeper, but, I don't know, maybe that or the land and the tiger.
There's quite a bit of nature in the chimney sweeper. The Lamb and the Tiger is challenging when it comes to nature. A little bit more challenging. The Lamb and the Tiger are the most accessible, but when you start to write about it, they are the most difficult. Because you really don't have much to go on. It's a simple piece. I just want to get to Westbrook. Okay.
I definitely wanna do London. I really like that one, but as for the others, maybe the Lamb and Tiger. Possibly, I don't know.
London gives you a lot of room.
I really wanna do, London and the Tiger because I like the way those two mesh together, at least.
Oh, you want to break free and do London and the Tiger simultaneously?
Yeah, 'cause I don't know, like, for me, like, when I read the two, they mesh in certain ways that I like.
Okay. In relationship to the romantic movement too, remember they can't be left behind. So you're gonna have to work it in. You can work it in, it can't be done. Just, you gotta make it clear. I'll let you take a chance at that.
So are you guys gonna give us like, were you gonna give us a prompt, what?
Yes.
Right, oh, okay.
Yes.
'Cause
And you-
I'm thinking about the questions already, you know?
Well, if you have a question you wanna, I'm gonna stick to my word. We got 4 minutes. If you have a question you want, if you say you want to write about this, and formulate it in the form of a question, right, so that would be your statement, you're welcome to do that.
Oh, okay.
It would just be much easier for you to follow my prompt because I know all the notes.
No, I know. I appreciate you for letting me know that, but I would rather do yours, because I have a lot of questions of myself, you know, so I will do yours, but I'm happy that you allow us to do that, right?
Yeah, if you gotta let me know so I don't wanna read it.
No, for sure.
The prompt is gonna be relatively simple. It's going to be, how does the poem and the poet adhere to the romantic movement in literature, right? But you have a lot of room within that to discuss the poem in detail and always connect it back to the romantic movement.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You're not just trapped in the romantic movement, you're trapped in the fact that, because this was the whole lesson for these 2 days, or 4 days, 5 days technically, is that it's part of the romantic movement in literature. Like when we get to transcendentalism, how is this transcendental, right? It's better to ground you to discuss something that you'll be learning about as you're discussing it. You can also use outside sources as well. You can go to the library and pluck out some. I don't want you to work too hard, that's why I give you all the information. But if you say, you know what, I want to read this or I want to read that, feel free. But cite it. Make sure it's in your words, not in the words of the person. Somebody that maybe has an advanced degree that might be a bit more articulate. Just cite them. Say this person said. Go with.
No, I didn't really get it. I'm gonna check that later.
So it's choose a poem and demonstrate how it relates to romantic movement in literature.
Yeah.
When the
Pretty straightforward, right? I mean, it's
When does that
but
do?
again, you could say things about. Let me just quickly. Oh my God, that's not easy.
I'll ask.
What's that?
Swift.
Professor, I'm assuming this will be due on Monday?
I'll probably ask you to do it earlier than that, but you can have until well, no, it's okay because we're done with this lesson. All right, I'll give you time. I'll give you the Sunday night.
Sunday night, 11:59.
11:59.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I planned on anyway. I just didn't realize I'm gonna get screwed up in days in my head.
Okay.
We have 2 minutes. Alright, so, now if you wanna talk about Blake's revolutionary qualities and stuff like that, it's gonna be tricky to work this necessarily in, but I've given you at least one example of, what's he talking about? Oh, the Romantics celebrated radical individualism. That's a part of the Romantic movement in literature, is radical individualism. Would you say Blake is a radical individual?
No. I think he's more of a societal change.
Okay, so how would you play with those words to make him, distinguish him, leading to them becoming more radical? Okay, well, we're talking, it's about making it work. But if you choose Blake, you gotta prove he's part of this.
Or not.
Or prove that he's not part of it. Nicely done. If you say he doesn't fit into the Romantic canon, excellent. You wanna say that he's not a part of the Romantic canon because what is he missing in the Romantic canon? He does use the I, and you'll notice in Ode to the Grecian Urn, he never says I, but the I is implied. There's also a break in structure, which is radical. Blake does not break in structure, he's very defined rhyme scheme. These would be the things that you could use if you were using Blake, because many use it in the Grey Monk. Grey Monk is a strict rhyme scheme. So you have to, sometimes, like Luca gave you an idea, which is, sorry, Luca, I'll give you credit for my heart. Luca gave you an idea, which is ultimately prove he's not a romantic. But then you gotta prove he's not a romantic with the definition of romantic in literature. Which might be challenging, or maybe that's where you walk that fine line. It's possible to consider.
Also, we have to put a counter argument as well.
Ideally, the best papers, although I'm only asking for one big paragraph, ideally, your best papers, I can go back now, I can just do this. Ideally, your best papers will have more than 2 quotations in a paragraph. That's like amateur night, but I want to make sure you know how to do it. Ideally, your best papers will have in a body paragraph a counter argument in each body paragraph. One may disagree, and then go back and one may disagree because of this line in Blake's poem, which suggests this, blah, blah, blah. But some may also say that this line does prove. I want you to have fun with language, while also adhering to this simple structure in one party paragraph. Does that make sense? Do you want to reach out to each other? I have no problem with that. I don't know how to open up those things for all you to talk, but you come up. Can you do that with each other? Work it out without me setting it up.
Group chat.
Group chat, right? Group chat. That's not. I don't young people do that stuff. It's 11:31, so I have to dismiss you. If you came in late, you have to come up. I have to change the attention.
I see. 5 page?
No. 1 paragraph.
Oh, just one.
Yeah, you know the discussion we did last week?
Yeah.
Like that, but what he said like that.
This instruction.
Instruction how to write it.
Okay.
So first you start with your statement,
Yeah.
and then you get to back up your statement. You use a quote, and then you explain the quote. And then you come and then you go on like moreover or finally this it also explains and then you use another quote. So you use two or three quotes and you explain the claim.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Did you understand?